Imagine finding a simple 1980 quarter in your pocket. You flip it over, look closer, and realize it could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even over $1 million. Sounds impossible, right? Well, in the world of rare and error coins, nothing is impossible. In fact, that very 1980 Washington quarter dollar you might have just spent at the grocery store could be hiding one of the rarest mint errors in U.S. coin history. So stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what makes these 1980 quarters so valuable, and you'll want to check every single one you own. The 1980 Washington quarter dollar, especially the one struck at the Philadelphia Mint, became infamous for a variety of striking errors, missing mint marks, and unusual metal compositions. And here's the part that makes coin collectors go wild. The Philadelphia Mint didn't use the P mint mark on quarters before 1980, but by 1982, the P was standard. So, any quarter from that year showing strange die errors, double strikes, or wrong planchet compositions can fetch serious money. Imagine finding a coin from 1982 that was accidentally struck on the wrong metal. Instead of being made from the normal copper-nickel-clad composition, a few were accidentally struck on plankets meant for other denominations, like a nickel or even a dime. These are known as wrong planchet errors, and they are among the most valuable in U.S. coin collecting history. Depending on condition and rarity, one of these could be worth anywhere from $5,000 to over $30,000. Collectors also go crazy for the off-center strikes from 1982. These happen when the coin planchet isn't properly centered between the dies during striking, causing part of the design to be missing. The more dramatic the off-center error, say 50% or more, the higher the value. Some off-center 1980 P quarters have sold for over $2,500, depending on condition and eye appeal. One of the most fascinating 1980 P Washington quarter errors ever discovered was struck on a pure copper planchet, normally used for pennies. The coin weighed only 3.1 grams instead of the normal 5.67 grams, and when authenticated, it shocked the collecting community. That single piece sold for over $25,000 at auction. Just imagine someone once had that in their change jar. Even regular 1980 P quarters, without obvious visible errors, can hold surprising value if they're in high mint state grades. Because of the economic turmoil that year, most coins went straight into circulation, meaning pristine examples are scarce. A perfectly preserved 1982 P quarter graded MS67 or higher by PCGS or NGC can sell for $1,000 to $3,500, and in rare cases, even more. Yes, you heard that right. The 1966 Washington quarter dollar, especially with rare mint errors, has become a hidden gem in the world of numismatics, and in today's video, you're going to discover why. So grab your coins, because by the time we're done, you'll want to check every single 1966 quarter you own. Imagine checking your pocket change one morning and finding what looks like an ordinary. You flip it over, glance at George Washington's familiar face, and are just about to spend it. The story begins during one of the most fascinating times in U.S. coinage history. The year 1966 came right after one of the biggest transitions the mint had ever faced. Just 2 years earlier, in 1964, the U.S. Mint stopped making silver coins for circulation. Up until that point, quarters were made of 90% silver and 10% copper. But with the rising price of silver in the mid-1960s, it became too expensive to continue minting coins with that precious metal. So in 1965, the mint switched to a copper-nickel-clad composition, what we use today. But that transition wasn't smooth, and that's where the magic happened. One of the rarest and most valuable types is the transitional error, a 1966 quarter accidentally struck on a silver planchet left over from 1964. Imagine that a coin that should have been struck in base metal, but was instead made of nearly pure silver. Only a handful of these silver 1966 quarters are known to exist, and their values are jaw-dropping. A verified 1966 Washington quarter struck on a 90% silver planchet can sell for $20,000 to $50,000 and in pristine condition. Experts believe it could easily surpass $60,000 or even approach the $1 million mark at major auctions. But that's just the beginning. The 1966 quarter is also famous for striking errors, coins that were struck multiple times or slightly misaligned. Creating doubled or off-center images, the double die obverse and double die reverse varieties are among the most sought after. On these coins, you might see doubling in the words Liberty, or even in the date 1966 the effect looks like a faint shadow or duplicate of the letters. Depending on how dramatic the doubling appears, these errors can bring anywhere from $1,000 to over $15,000 at auction. Then there are off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't properly positioned in the press. These are some of the most visually striking errors literally. The image of Washington's head may appear halfway off the coin, or the date might be missing entirely. The more off-center it is, the higher the value. A 1966 quarter struck 60% off-center can fetch to $1,000 or more. While extreme off-center errors, those with almost half the design missing, can go for $5,000 to $10,000 depending on condition. A gem quality coin graded MS67 or higher by PCGS or NGC can sell for $1,000 to $2,000. And the few known in MS68 condition have brought prices approaching $10,000 at auction. The 1983p Washington quarter dollar, a coin most people overlook every single day, hides some of the rarest and most valuable mint errors in American coinage history. And today, we're diving deep into why this humble 25-cent coin could turn into a life-changing discovery. Imagine this for a second: you're at the store, paying with a handful of quarters, when one coin catches. Let's start with the year 1983. It was a unique time for U.S. coinage. The U.S. Mint had already moved away from silver coins nearly 2 decades earlier, but the 1980s brought new challenges. The minting presses were faster, production numbers were higher, and quality control wasn't always perfect. And for collectors, that means one thing: mint errors slipped through, and some of those mistakes are now worth a fortune. One of the most legendary errors is the double die obverse coin, where the die struck the design twice slightly misaligned, creating a doubled image. On some 1983p quarters, you can clearly see doubling on the word Liberty, the motto, or even in the date 1983. Under magnification, it almost looks like the letters are dancing on the surface. These coins can fetch anywhere from $1,000 to $15,000, depending on the strength of the doubling and the condition of the coin. Another standout error from 1983 is the off-center strike, where the planchette wasn't properly aligned during striking. The design might appear shifted to one side, sometimes cutting off parts of Washington's face or the date. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. A 1983p quarter struck 50% off-center can easily bring to $1,000 to $4,000, and extreme examples have sold for over $10,000 at auction. Now let's talk about one of the most fascinating and valuable varieties of them all: the 1983p quarter struck on the wrong planchette. During minting, plankets for other denominations sometimes get mixed into the presses. Would weigh about 5 grams instead of the normal 5.67 grams. One such example sold for over $10,000. And if a 1983p quarter was struck on a silver planchette, say, one accidentally left over from another coin series, that coin could be worth well over $40,000, maybe even approaching $1 million, depending on rarity and authentication. What makes the 1983p quarter even more fascinating is that it was struck during a year when the U.S. Mint, so even regular 1983p quarters in uncirculated condition are rare and desirable. A top-grade 1983p quarter graded MS67 or MS68 by PCGS or NGC can bring to $1,000 to $5,000, and a flawless MS68 example could push even higher. What if I told you that one of those very same 1979 D quarters could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars? That's right, the 1979 D Washington quarter dollar hides some of the most spectacular and valuable mint errors ever discovered, and in today's story, we're diving deep into why this seemingly ordinary coin has become a legend in the world of numismatics. Let's set the stage. The year is 1979. The U.S. Mint in Denver was running full throttle, striking hundreds of millions of Washington quarters to meet circulation demands. It was a time of high production and tight deadlines, and whenever the mint works under that kind of pressure, mistakes can happen. Those small errors, unnoticed by workers in the rush of production, are now worth fortunes to collectors. One of the most famous and valuable errors from 1979 is the double die obverse. This happens when the die that strikes the coin receives a doubled impression during its creation, resulting in doubled images on the coin itself. If you look closely at a 1979 decoder and see doubling in the word or the date 1979, you could be holding a double die error. The doubling gives the letters a ghost-like shadow, and collectors go wild for it, depending on condition and clarity. These coins can be worth $1,000 to $15,000, with pristine examples reaching even higher prices. But that's just the beginning. Another spectacular 1979 decoder error is the off-center strike. These coins are struck when the blank planchette isn't properly centered between the dies, leaving part of the design missing. Some off-center strikes show Washington's face pushed to the edge or even half missing. The more off-center the strike, the more valuable the coin. Minor off-center errors might be worth a few $100s, but dramatic ones, especially those showing the full date, can bring $3,000 to $10,000 at auction. Another thrilling type of error is the wrong planchette strike, where a 1979 decoder is struck on a planchette meant for another coin, like a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin. These mistakes happen when leftover blanks from another production run are accidentally fed into the quarter press. A 1979 decoder struck on a dime planchette would be smaller and lighter, weighing around 2.3 grams instead of the normal 5.67 grams. Such coins are incredibly rare and can sell for $10,000 to $30,000, depending on the denomination of the planchette and condition of the coin. Even regular 1979 decorders can hold surprising value if they're in exceptional condition. Since most went directly into circulation, high-grade uncirculated examples are relatively scarce. A flawless coin graded MS67 or MS68 by PCGS or NGC can sell for $1,000 to $5,000. And if one were to surface in perfect MS69, it could break records and reach tens of thousands of dollars. The 1981 Washington quarter dollar with a small P mint mark under George Washington's neck. At first glance, it looks like any other coin you've handled thousands of times. But what if I told you that this simple 1981 P quarter could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars? That's right, this ordinary-looking coin hides some extraordinary secrets that have turned everyday pocket change into rare treasures collectors would pay a fortune. Let's rewind to 1981. The Philadelphia Mint was in full swing, producing over 600 million Washington quarters that year. It was a time of high demand and relentless production, and with so many coins being struck, even the smallest mistake could slip through the system unnoticed, and when it did, those tiny imperfections became the stuff of legend. Unique, valuable, and highly sought after today. One of the most famous and desirable types is the double die obverse. This happens when the die that stamps the coin is imprinted twice with slight misalignment, creating visible doubling on the coin's details. If you spot doubling on the word Liberty, the date 1981, or the motto, you could be looking at a serious jackpot. Strong examples of this error have sold for $1,000 to $10,000, while sharply defined mint state specimens have brought in over $20,000 at auction. Then there's the off-center strike, one of the most dramatic minting errors a collector can find. This occurs when the coin blank, called a planchette, isn't properly aligned within the press, resulting in part of the design missing. For a 1981 P Washington quarter, even a 10 to 15% off-center strike can fetch $500 to $2,000. But those that are 50% or more off-center with a visible date can easily bring $5,000 to $15,000 or more. But perhaps the most incredible 1981 P errors are those struck on the wrong planchette. These mistakes happen when a blank from another denomination like a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin gets stuck in the press meant for quarters. The resulting coin has the design of a quarter, but the size and weight of a different denomination. For example, a 1981 P quarter struck on a dime planchette would weigh only around 2.3 grams and appear smaller. Such coins can be worth $10,000 to $25,000 depending on condition. Now, let's not forget about the mirror-like proofs and high-grade mint state coins. While the Philadelphia Mint didn't officially produce proof quarters in 1981, those were made in San Francisco. Some business strike 1981 P coins were accidentally struck with proof dies or received an unusually sharp strike. These mirror-like specimens are among the most attractive in the entire Washington quarter series. In perfect condition graded MS68 or MS69 by PCGS or NGC, they can sell for $3,000 to $10,000, with record-setting examples occasionally hitting $20,000. What if I told you that this same 1980 for P Washington quarter dollar could actually be worth hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars? That's right, this everyday coin hides some of the most shocking minting errors and rare varieties in modern U.S. coin history, and one of them could be sitting in your collection or even your wallet right now. The story of the 1980 for P Washington quarter dollar begins at the Philadelphia Mint, a facility that struck hundreds of millions of coins that year. It was a busy time, with machines running non-stop to meet national demand. And as any collector knows, when the mint operates at full speed, tiny mistakes can happen. Those errors, often overlooked at the time, are now worth small fortunes to collectors who know what to look for. Let's start with one of the most exciting error types, the double die obverse. This occurs when the die that strikes the coin receives two slightly misaligned impressions during its creation, causing a doubled image on the coin's details. Look closely at Liberty, or the date 1984. If you see what looks like shadowy, doubled letters or numbers, you could be holding a double die error worth a fortune. Depending on how strong the doubling is, these coins can sell from $1,000 to $15,000, and in pristine uncirculated condition, they've been known to hit $25,000 or more at auction. Next, there's the spectacular off-center strike error. This happens when the blank planchette isn't properly centered in the striking chamber, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. A minor off-center strike of 5 to 10% might fetch a few $100s, but when the design is shifted dramatically, say, 50% off-center, and the date is still visible, you're looking at a coin worth $5,000 to $10,000, sometimes even higher for extreme examples. Then there's the incredible wrong planchette error, where the coin is struck on a planchette meant for another denomination or even another country. Imagine finding a 1980 for P quarter struck on a dime planchette smaller, lighter, and missing parts of the design. Such coins can easily be worth $10,000 to $25,000 depending on their condition. And if a 1980 for P quarter was mistakenly struck on a leftover silver planchette from decades earlier, that could be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery worth hundreds of thousands or potentially millions of dollars. Now, while most of these 1984 P quarters were mass-produced and circulated widely, finding one in perfect, uncirculated condition is a challenge. Coins graded MS67 or MS68 by professional services like PCGS or NGC are rare, and even without major errors, they can sell for $1,000 to $5,000. A flawless MS69 example, if one ever appeared, could bring $10,000 or more, simply because of its near-perfect strike and surface preservation. One of the most mysterious and valuable hidden treasures ever struck by the U.S. Mint, many collectors have overlooked it for decades, and yet, a few lucky people who stumbled upon the right error version have walked away with life-changing amounts of money. We're diving deep into the rarest 1988 P error Washington quarter dollar, how to identify them, their shocking history, and exactly why some of these coins can sell for hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars. The 1988 P Washington quarter was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, which struck hundreds of millions of these coins that year, over 562 million, to be exact. At first glance, this coin seems pretty ordinary. It features George Washington on the obverse with the familiar motto and the word Liberty above his portrait. The reverse shows the majestic eagle with its wings spread, clutching arrows and olive branches, a design that had been used since 1932. But among these millions of standard coins, a handful of rare minting errors occurred, creating some of the most sought-after and valuable 1988 quarters ever discovered. One of the most dramatic errors, known on the 1988 P quarter, is the off-center strike. These coins were struck when the blank planchette was misaligned between the dies, causing part of the design to be missing and leaving a blank crescent of metal on the edge. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, these coins can bring in hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. Some 1988p off-center quarters with clear visible dates and mint marks have sold for over $2,000. The more dramatic the error, the higher the price. One of the most fascinating and valuable types of 1988p error quarters ever discovered is the transitional planchet error. Transitional errors happen when the mint mistakenly uses plankets intended for a different year or metal composition. For example, a 1988p quarter struck on the wrong planchet, such as a 5-cent or foreign planchet, could be incredibly valuable. If authenticated by a top grading service, such a coin could fetch anywhere between $5,000 and $25,000 or more depending on weight and rarity. There are also instances of the 1988p quarter being struck on cent or dime plankets. These are wildly rare and fascinating errors. Since the smaller planchet doesn't fill the entire die, you end up with an incomplete design and a coin that looks absolutely strange and valuable. Coins like this have been known to bring $10,000 to $20,000 or even higher when certified by NGC or PCGS in mint state condition. A 1988p quarter missing its clad layer will have a golden or copper appearance on one or both sides. These errors are visually stunning and extremely collectible. Depending on condition, such coins can easily reach prices of $1,000 to $5,000. A particularly beautiful example with full luster and sharp detail might even exceed $10,000 at auction. We're diving deep into the fascinating world of the 1990p error Washington quarter dollar, its mysterious history, its most valuable and rare errors, and the unbelievable prices these coins can fetch, sometimes reaching hundreds, thousands, or even millions of dollars. So stay with me until the very end, because what I'm about to reveal will make you look at every quarter you find in a whole new light. The 1990p Washington quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, one of the busiest mints in the United States, producing hundreds of millions of coins every year. In fact, over 613 million quarters were minted that year with the P mint mark. On the surface, this coin seems completely normal. It features the familiar bust of George Washington on the obverse side. With the inscriptions and the date 1990, the reverse shows the iconic eagle clutching arrows and olive branches. One of the most striking and valuable 1990p error quarters ever discovered is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank planchet isn't correctly positioned between the dies during striking, causing part of the design to appear off the coin center. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes, especially if the date 1990 and the P mint mark are still visible. Slightly off-center examples might fetch $100 to $500, but extreme off-center errors can easily sell for $2,000 or more. Some collectors have even paid over $5,000 for well-preserved examples in mint state condition. Another incredibly rare type is the broad strike error. When a coin is struck without the collar that normally contains its edge, the metal spreads out wider than normal, giving the coin a stretched or flattened appearance. These broad strike 1990p quarters have sold for hundreds to thousands of dollars, depending on their condition and eye appeal. A flawless, uncirculated example certified by PCGS or NGC can fetch as much as $1,500 or more at auction, but that's just the beginning. There are also rare transitional planchet errors associated with some 1990 quarters. These occur when the U.S. Mint mistakenly strikes coins on the wrong metal composition or on plankets intended for another denomination. These transitional or wrong planchet errors are extremely rare and can sell for $5,000, $10,000, or even upwards of $25,000, depending on their uniqueness. The condition of the coin is another major factor that determines its worth. Error coins in circulated condition are still valuable, but uncirculated or mint state examples can be worth many times more. Coins graded MS65 or higher by PCGS or NGC bring the top prices. For example, a 1990p double die quarter graded MS67 could easily fetch over $15,000, while a circulated example of the same error might only sell for a few hundred.